Hi there, and welcome back to this channel. Let us talk about the excretion in plants and animal. The process of excretion in plant and animal. All right, so what is excretion? Excretion is seen as the process by which the waste products that are produced during metabolic activities is removed from the body. So we can otherwise say that it is the removal of waste products of metabolism from the body of an organism. So of course you have to understand, or you need to understand what metabolism is. Okay, so basically, all products, all processes that involves the the production of substances within the body and the breakdown of substances within the body are characterized as metabolism. All processes involving what? Breakdown and building up. Now, is the all those processes are altogether called metabolism. And physiologically, we define metabolism as the chemical process that occurs within a living organism in order to maintain life. So it is just all chemical processes. Now, so because the living organism, we say they are biochemical processes. Now, that's why metabolism is divided into two. We have anabolism and catabolism. So, I have talked about this before. So, where ana, the word ana means up, is a Greek word that means up. And the word bol is from the Greek word balo, which means to throw, and of course, ism means process. So it's just a constructive process. That's what it means. Because since this is ana, which means to go up or to build up, it means to build up. So it means that anabolism is a metabolic process that involves the um, building up of substances within the body. And an example of such process in living organisms is photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is anabolic process. Why? Because it builds up sugar, builds up organic food, which is carbohydrate. All right. So, and of course, another name for anabolism is just what? Constructive metabolism. Then kata, the word kata means to go down. Kata means down. Kata means down. So, of course, this will mean what? The breakdown process. Breakdown process. And we can otherwise call it destructive metabolism. Destructive metabolism. So, and an example is respiration. So the process of respiration breaks down simple sugar or carbohydrate to release energy. So this is going to be a catabolic reaction. All right. So the waste products from these processes is the process by which we eliminate them is what is known as excretion. Now, in unicellular organisms, the waste products are removed from the cell into its surrounding by diffusion. So, in unicellular organism, the excretory process is through diffusion. Okay, and in multicellular organisms, the waste products are removed through specialized organs. Now, excretion takes place in all organisms because if an organism does not excrete waste product, the waste is going to build up and of course is going to pollute the organism itself and then might result in death through suffocation and all sort of things. Okay, so that's the reason why excretion is necessary. So let's quickly discuss excretion in plants. Briefly, let's discuss excretion in plant. Now, before I go through what I have in my slide here, I do want to begin uh, by the fact that plants excrete excess water by transpiration. Um, so here we are going to be talking about um, um, the different waste products that the plant can excrete. Is that okay? Can give a, or yes, excrete. All right. So I've said that they will excrete water by transpiration, and what that means is that they lose water from um, their the openings on their body, such as the leaves that has the stomata. So they are going to lose water. Is that okay? The guard cells of the leaves are going to open up for water to be released. Okay, so that's transpiration. Now oxygen is also thought to be a waste product that is generated through the process of photosynthesis. So, and that also comes out through the stomata. So, remember, if you remember the this um, chemical formula CO2 plus H2O, because that's the process of photosynthesis. We have C6H12O6. So, of course, we had 6 here to balance the equation, then plus 6O2. So, we say that this is given off. Is that okay? This guy is the byproduct of photosynthesis, that is, oxygen is given off as the byproduct of photosynthesis. Okay, so and this will go out through the stomata. All right, then of course, um, waste products may also be stored in leaves that will be, that will be shed off. Is that okay? Since trees shed off leaf, they sometimes may store their waste products in that in the leaf. Okay. Then of course, some plants store their waste products in vacuoles, and that's why they have large vacuoles. So they excrete some waste products into the soil around them too, and some waste products are also stored in resins and gums in old xylem. Is that okay? That's why you see for gum producing trees, that is for gum producing trees. So you see them, those trees will be, those resins and gums are going to be eliminated from their body, and you see them, um, you know, producing those things out of their body. And most of the waste products are stored within the dead tissues that are removed periodically. Okay? So those are the major things that you have to first know about plants, um, um, excretion in plants. Okay, so in this slide, I wrote that compared to animals, plants do not have a well-developed excretory system to throw out nitrogenous waste materials. And this is because of the difference in their physiology. So because of this, they use a different mode of excretion. The gaseous waste material produced during respiration, that is CO2, and photosynthesis, O2, diffuses out through stomata in the leaves and through lenticels in the other parts, the branches and the stem, that is. Now, excess water evaporates mostly from stomata and also from the outer surface of the stem of fruit, etc. Throughout the day, this process of getting rid of excess water is called transpiration, which I just mentioned. Now, the thing is, you see, we have two processes here. We have two physiological processes, which are respiration. We have two physiological processes, respiration and photosynthesis. So in respiration, the organism is going to produce CO2. Now, most of the CO2 that it produces is later going to be reused in the process of photosynthesis, but excess will be given off in the stomata. But of course, that is in the respiration, that is respiration. But in photosynthesis, it's going to give out oxygen. It's going to give out oxygen. So oxygen is a byproduct, like I mentioned before. All right, let's go now. The waste products may be stored in leaves that fall off, like I said, and other waste materials that are exuded by some plants. So, example, we have resins, we have saps, yes, saps, gums, is that okay? Latexes, etc. Now, they are forced from the interior of the plant and by absorptive forces of plant cells. So, they are forced out of the body of the xylem, old xylem tissues. Now, plants also excrete some waste materials into the soil around them. Yes, they can also excrete into the soil around them. Now, what's the mechanism of excretion in plants? How does this excretion actually take place? Now, plants do not have mechanism to collect, transport, and throw out their waste products. So, but they have adopted varied strategies to protect their living cells from waste products. Now, they use old leaves and old xylems. Like I mentioned before, they use old leaves and old xylems. So, old leaves are shed off because old leaves are shed off, and waste products are, you know, deposited in that old leaf. So, they are shed off. And of course, old xylem tissue help to push out waste products like saps and resins and gums. Is that okay? So that's the major thing there. Now we also have barks. The barks will become dried. So those dead cells will be peeled off periodically. Now, some of these dead cells have in them tannins and other waste products that will be deposited in them. Is that okay? So that's why we um, use this. That's how we're able to use these materials, which serve as waste, of course, to these animals. That's how we're able to use them as waste, as raw materials in the ink industry, dye and ink industry. Then, of course, there's a central vacuole. You know the diagram of the cell, the animal cell, the plant cell rather. It's going to look something like this. So the entire mass of the cell, you're going to see a large vacuole, and of course, so that is the where most of the waste product is stored. Is that okay? So um, basically, you see water and other materials that the cell does not need here. So then you see your nucleus. You're going to see other aspect, other part of the plant cell. Okay, so that's that. Then they also have root secretions that is shed to the surrounding soil, and also detoxification. Detoxification um, involves the detoxification of oxalic acid that is produced within the body of this of the plants, and the formation of calcium oxalate, which gets crystallized into needles, prisms, stars, and crystal sands. Now, excess calcium. I'm going to briefly talk about um, how detoxification, how this detoxification actually takes place in the plant. Is that okay? Now, so I said excess calcium. I'm going to dwell on that, detoxification in just a little moment, so that we can understand how the process takes place. Give me water, please. So then, of course, we have the salt glands. Let me quickly talk about the detoxification. Now, um, the way it happens is such that in plants, the oxalic acid is detoxified into um, calcium oxalate. Is that okay? And the chemical formula for oxalic acid, or the oxalic acid, is um, C2H2O4. So, and this is going to be converted into calcium oxalate. Calcium oxalate. All right. Now, this detoxification is a natural process, and it helps to regulate the oxalate levels in the um, body of the plants. Is that okay? And also ion balance. It's also for ion balance, and particularly which ion? Of course, the calcium ion. The calcium ion, the balance of calcium ion in the body of the plant. So now, oxalate acid or oxalate or oxalic acid, is that okay? We can call it oxalate or oxalic acid, is a biochemical process, a biochemical product rather of many metabolic pathways in the body of the of the plants. So some of the metabolic pathways could be the glycolate pathway, glycolate oxidation pathway. We also have ascorbate, that is vitamin C, ascorbic acid degradation. So during one of these metabolic pathways, the oxalic acid is going to be um, produced. Now, this oxalic acid is essentially toxic to the plant because it chelates essential metal ions like calcium. Is that okay? So, and that would impact metabolic activities. It's going to cause a disruption. Okay, so now the calcium ion are naturally present in the plant cell. So calcium ions are naturally present in the plant cell. That's one thing to know. Ca2 plus that is okay. So, and they are absorbed from the soil, primarily absorbed from the soil. So they are necessary for building the cell wall. They're necessary for building the cell wall. And what is called the process of signal transduction. Signal transduction. Now, signal transduction is just all grammar. It's very simple. Now, transduction is basically a process in which the cell receives or um, or transduction. Now, the process by which the cell receives or interprets or sends back information. Is that okay? Um, you know, um, and it's going to be, it doesn't have brain, it's going to be what, via internal and external stimulus. Is that okay? So it receives external stimulus, interprets it, and send back. um, Now, what do I mean by send back information? More like it reacts to that information. Is that okay? So it's going to receive signal through um, the external stimulus. Is that okay? And usually that signal molecule might be an hormone or a peptide or whatever. So usually the auxin hormone, for example, that is a very common example. So if it receives that hormone, then the signal transduction is the process where the receptor will now undergo different changes, conformational changes particularly. Is that okay? So, and the the messengers include the secondary messengers that it activates during the process of these changes are the majorly calcium ions. I'm using the calcium ion as an example. It also uses inositol triphosphate as one of its secondary messengers. But majorly, I want to talk about the calcium ion. So when the calcium ion then undergo conformational changes, is activated by these conformational changes, then what happens is that there is a response. Is that okay? A response. Now, these responses are specific. That is one thing. The responses are specific, and so let me take you through the process. So we said we are going to start from the process of information reception, and then information reception first, signal reception, then that is when signal transduction now takes place. Signal transduction. Okay. So in signal transduction, basically signal transduction is just where there is reception of the information too. Is that okay? So then there is activation of um, secondary messengers. Now the secondary messengers in this case, I'm talking about the calcium ions. So these calcium ions now, the activation of these calcium ions will now lead to responses by the organism itself, by the plant itself. Is that okay? So it could be response to um, changes in gene expression or opening of ion channels. Is that okay? So especially for the calcium ion, it could be opening of ion channels. Then, of course, there is termination of the whole process. So So now, for the termination process, certain enzymes are usually used to um, bring about the termination process. Okay, so So I was talking about how detoxification takes place. So after the signal transduction, where you know, um, the which is one of what the calcium ion is very important for. Then there is formation of the calcium oxalate. So calcium oxalate is just the chemical reaction is going to be Ca is going to be Ca2 plus Cu2O4 2 minus, which is the oxalate ion. So this is calcium ion, oxalate ion. Now this will now produce CaC2O4. CaC2O4, yeah, 2 2. Yes. Okay, so and of course, um, at the end of the day, there is crystallization of the um, or sequestration of the oxalate, calcium oxalate. So that is basically the process of detoxification. That is the conversion of the toxic oxalic acid into calcium oxalate. Okay, so let's move on. So we have diffusion of oxygen in the leaf, diffusion of oxygen in the leaf. So um, the you're going to see here. Let me change the color. Let's use red. No, pink. Okay, so you're going to see here that the guard cells are going to open up. Now, once the guard cells open up, what happens? Then you're going to see carbon dioxide is going to come in through the guard cell. So when the carbon dioxide comes in, you see cells here are giving out what oxygen, right? They are exchanging for oxygen, and that's because after this in the leaf is that okay? After photosynthesis, the oxygen is going to be produced as a byproduct. So as CO2 is taken in for photosynthesis, oxygen is given off. So that is how diffusion basically takes place. Now the no, bring it on. Bring it on. So that's diffusion in. Okay, before we talk about so that we'll be explicit on the concept of diffusion in in the in the leaf of the plant. Okay, I want us to quickly explain a little bit about the diffusion process as it takes place in in the leaf. Okay, all right. Now we already know what diffusion is, of course. Diffusion is the movement of molecules, molecules or ions, etc., from region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. That is from a place where it is highly concentrated, where ions are highly concentrated, they move to a place where they have lower concentration. So, and of course, remember that the ions are going to move in opposite direction to the direction of water. When we get to the excretion in fish, you are going to understand what I mean by the process. Now, when and how does the oxygen get to be diffused in a leaf? Now, the first one is during photosynthesis, and photosynthesis takes place in the daytime. Yeah, okay. So in the chloroplast, where the photosynthesis takes place, because of there is embedded with chlorophyll, we're going to see that the plant produces oxygen by the process of photosynthesis, which formula I wrote for you the other time, and that's CO2 plus H2O to produce C6H12, C6H12O6 plus oxygen primarily. So this oxygen would now diffuse out of the leaf, the spongy mesophiles of the plant. Is that okay? The spongy mesophiles spongy mesophiles are the cells. Is that okay? In which the chloroplasts are embedded. You're going to see the chloroplast here. Is that okay? Those green spots you can see there. So the the um, the oxygen is going to be produced in the process of respiration is going, photosynthesis is going to occur within the cell. Is that okay? Once the oxygen is produced, then it goes out through the mesophyll cells. Is that okay? Of course, the palisade cells also uh, photosynthesize, all right? And of course, it's going to, the oxygen will now diffuse out through the intercellular spaces, and of course, through stomata in the, uh, the underside of the leaf. So this is the upper side of the leaf, and this is called the underside of the leaf. Is that okay? So the underside of the leaf are where the guard cells are located. Now, of course, the reverse is the case in the night time. The reverse is the case where we have um, the process of the opposite of photosynthesis I mentioned in the last class is respiration, isn't it? So during respiration, that one occurs day and night, basically. So, but I want to talk about it in the context of night. It's the same process that that you know that it's the same process that it follows. Okay, so now all plants cell respires. All the cells of plants respire, and they basically use oxygen to break down glucose. Now the oxygen will diffuse into the leaf through stomata, just like the CO2 in photosynthesis entered into the the entered into the stoma. The stoma is singular. Is that okay? Stoma is singular, and stomata is plural. Stomata is plural. Okay. So I believe by now you already understand how diffusion takes place. Just exchange of gases within the the organ, which is the leaf. Okay. Now, excretion in animals. Now, many unicellular amoeba, yeah, unicellular organisms like amoeba throw out waste by diffusion from their body surface. That is body surface diffusion. Okay. Then protozoans have no organs for excretion. Yeah, there are no organs for excretion. An example of protozoan is the amoeba that we just talked about. So, and that's because they live in the aquatic habitat. So they eliminate their waste by diffusion through their body surface. So um, they have a high body surface and they have a high surface area to volume ratio. So what that means basically is that they have a larger surface area than their volume than so that is their surface area is larger in ratio compared to their volume. Does that make sense? So they have a larger surface area to volume ratio. That's what we say it. Okay, and what that means basically is that chemical reaction is going to be faster within them, isn't it? So they can easily just transport, is that okay? Pass substances from out of their body into their environment. So simple multicellular organisms like Hydra throw out solid waste through their mouth. Yes, of course. The Hydra looks somewhat like this. So it has an opening here, which is called the mouth. Okay, so it throws out substances and takes in substances through the same place. Okay, then high multicellular organisms have well-defined specialized excretory organs, and those organs could be simple tubular structures, as in flatworms and leech. The excretory organs of insects, grasshoppers, cockroach, and houseflies, these insects are also tubular, and they remove nitrogenous, we call it Malpighian tubule. I didn't mention that here. Malpighian tubules. Malpighian tubules. Basically, in the next video, I'm going to go over the comparative anatomy of their reproductive structures, excretory structures. So it's going to make more sense to us. So Now, in invertebrates, the main organ of excretion and maintenance of body of water balance is the kidney, and I'm going to discuss that extensively. I'm going to discuss that extensively, the kidneys. Now, in human beings, so from those organisms to down from those invertebrates down to vertebrates, we make use of kidneys, but at different levels of advancement, of course. So our kidneys are um, very advanced and very efficient. Is that okay? Our kidneys are more efficient, um, so that's just it. Now let's quickly talk about the excretion in human beings. Now, excretion system of human beings includes kidney, ureters, a pair of ureters. What that is just, I'm going to show us in the next slide, basically, the structure. We're going to see the structure. Okay? Now, so we have, it consists of a pair of kidneys. So there are two kidneys, a pair of ureters, two ureters connecting from the kidney down to the urethra, one urethra, yes, and one urinary bladder, yes. So the ureter connects the kidney and the urinary bladder. You're going to see that. Now, kidneys are located in the abdomen, and one on either side of the abdomen. And of course, the the left kidney, yes, the left kidney is slightly above the right kidney. Let's see if that slide shows that anatomy. Shows that anatomically. Yes. So you're going to see, okay. So you're going to see this. You see that the level is quite above, slightly above the. So this is the left kidney. This is the right kidney. Okay. Anatomically, we look at things um, in the way it happened. So if it were you right now, your right hand is going to be your right kidney. The position of your right hand is going to be your right kidney, and the position of your left hand is going to be your left kidney. Okay, so um, so let's go over this. So you can see the kidneys on top of which we have the adrenal gland. That's the yellow structure you can see there. The adrenal gland that produces the adrenaline hormone, and you're going to see the ureters that connect directly to the urinary bladders and to the urethra. The urethra is how the kidney, the urine, which is a major urinary, our major excretory product. Is that okay? Because we are ureotelic. Is that okay? Organisms are characterized into three based on their. I'm going to go over this in the other slides in the other classes. Is that okay? This is just an introductory class. So we classify organisms into three based on what they excrete. We have the monotelic organisms, the urotelic, and the uricotelic. So monotelic simply means they excrete ammonia. Is that okay? Ammonotelic. Let me spell that here. Ammonotelic. So we have uricotelic. Uricotelic means the what? Excrete uric acid. Then ureotelic means they excrete urea. Okay, so of course you can. We're going to go over how all of these parts of the kidney, how they function. This is called the urinary system. This structure you can see is called the urinary system. Okay, it's called the urinary system. We're going to go over that in the next slide. Now, our excretion system consists of kidney blood vessels that join them, ureters, urinary bladder, and urethra. They help produce and excrete urine, and there are two bean-shaped kidneys that lie in the abdominal cavity, one on either side. Now, each of the kidneys is about 10 centimeters long and weighs about 150 grams. Now, although they weigh less, they receive a lot of blood for filtration. They have less mass, but they actually function a lot. They receive a lot of blood in which they filter. So they are primarily blood cleansers. Is that okay? They filter waste out of the blood. In three major processes that we're going to see in the other slides. Okay, so now internal structure of the kidney, you're going to see, I've covered this in the physical class, so I might link the video in the description also. So you're going to see the ureter here, you're going to see the vein and the artery. Of course, the artery brings the blood that is dirty, so to speak, or that has waste, and the vein takes blood that is clean back to the heart. Is that okay? The renal vein. They are going to see this pyramidal shaped organ, pyramidal shaped structure. Okay, this pyramid here. So we call it the pyramid, the renal pyramid, which forms the medulla, and of course the edge here is called the apex of pyramid. Is that okay? The apex of pyramid lead into what we call the calyces, the calyces. When we get to the anatomy class, we're going to do in-depth study of this. Um, okay, so now there is the major excretory unit. The excretory unit within the kidney is called the nephron. It's called the nephron. Okay? So, and this is a nephron here. This is a nephron here. Nephron consists of three most important parts, and they are sectioned into, they are within this structure here. They are within this guy here, this guy you see here, that is, which is the medulla. Is that okay? So some parts of it are in the cortex and some part of it, the major parts are within the medulla. The cortex houses the Bowman's capsule and the Bowman's capsule, glomerulus. Of course, glomerulus is encamped, is encircled by the Bowman's capsule. You're going to see that here. So look at the Bowman's capsule here. So this portion, okay, yeah. So look at it, it's in the cortex. From here, the proximal convoluted tubule is here. So this is the proximal convoluted tube. Proximal convolution means proximal, okay, yeah, it's here. It's labeled here. The proximal convoluted tubule. Proximal means near, right? And convolution means coiled, right? Coiled. Okay, so it means coiled tubule. So the first one, the first proximal, the first convoluted tubule is in the cortex, and the second is also in the cortex. While the loop of Henle, is that okay, or Henle's loop, it was discovered by a certain okay, it was named after the scientist, of course, that discovered it. So we call it loop of Henle. That the loop of Henle is majorly in the medulla, and of course the other collecting ducts are also in the medulla. Okay, they're also in the medulla. So then we have the renal vein that you can see here. Oh, venues, actually, they are venues because they are smaller veins, isn't it? So they are smaller veins, so we call them venues. So, and of course, this is the renal, and this is called the afferent arteriole. Afferent because it brings blood, isn't it? And if it takes away blood, it's going to be called the efferent arteriole. The efferent arteriole. So you're going to see here. So this is the afferent arteriole that bring blood. Then we have the capillaries here. Is that okay? So then um, you're going to see the efferent arteriole, arteriole because they are tiny arteries. Does that make sense? Okay. So and of course we have the what else? What else? So then you have the capillaries encircling the loop of Henle. Is that okay? And that's because of the process of reabsorption that takes place. Is that okay? Process of selective reabsorption that takes place. So these blood vessels, the capillaries, still take some substances that are needed by the body, takes them from the filtrates that enters into this tube here, that enters into this tube. Okay, so that's the loop of Henle that you can see there. It's named after a certain scientist. I think is Gustav Henry. I really Henry. That's what I remember. But there's a common name, I think, Christian name that is called Gustav Henley. Okay, so now the nephron basically consists of a cord tubule and a Macuigan corpuscle. The tubule of the nephron is differentiated into proximal convoluted tubule. Okay, I've explained all of this process, all of this. Now the mechanism here, I'll basically cover it quickly. I'll cover it quickly. Now, the first is the glomerular filtration. Now, what do we mean by glomerular filtration? Glomerular filtration is just when the afferent arteriole, it comes with blood that is dirty, right? So that blood will therefore move into the um, glomerulus. Is that okay? So the glomerulus is already encircled by the Bowman's capsule, like I said. So the blood is going to be filtered. Is that okay? The blood is going to be filtered, and after filtration, is going to the remaining um, clean blood is going to go to the is going to go to the go with the efferent head. That was what I was trying to remember. The efferent arterial. The efferent arterial. Okay. So basically the 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 blood that comes into the glomerulus is dirty, and the blood that leaves the glomerulus is just capillaries, isn't it? Group of small intertwined capillaries. Is that okay? So so when the blood is filtered, it comes in a rush with high pressure, and then it gets filtered, and some of the filtrates will enter into the Bowman's capsule. Now, the Bowman's capsule, or we also call it glomerular capsule, is that okay? Now, in man, about 180 liters of fluid is filtered from the blood plasma through glomerular capillary walls every 24 hours. Okay, about 180 liters of fluid. Then the next thing that happens is, now this is not tabular, this is tubular, excuse me, tubular reabsorption. Tubular reabsorption. Now, what happens is that some of these substances um, are still needed by the body, so they get reabsorbed into the blood. Is that okay? And then there is active secretion. So, as it flows through the distal convoluted tubule, some unwanted substances that are not filtered will now, they would they would be actively secreted out of the tubule, the collecting tubules. Is that okay? To be filtered out, and so that's the process of urine creation. I am going to really talk about this in the next video, in the video on comparative anatomy also. No, no, not comparative anatomy. In the anatomy, rather, the anatomy of the kidney, I'll talk more on this. Is that okay? This is just for basic biology. If you did gain value from this video, do well to subscribe to the channel. God bless you.